happy, beautiful day. It's Pete Cohen, and welcome to the Pete Cohen podcast. Today's podcast is called Habit Busting Revisited. This is a subject that has been a part of my life massively, believe it or not. I can't believe I'm saying this, for the last 30 years. Yes, I wrote a best-selling book It came out in 2001. We started writing it in 1999. Where were you in 1999? Well, I was deep into the writing of a book all about habits. I want to share really what I've learned with you over the last 30 years, because they say, whoever they are, in fact, it wasn't they, it was Aristotle, that excellence is not an act, it is a habit. And if you want an excellent life, and you want to achieve your goals and your dreams, and your ambitions, you've really got to have a look at this incredible subject of habits. So let's get ready to bust some habits. I'll see you right after the theme tune. The big question is, how are some people in the world today creating the results they want with their health, wealth, and happiness? What exactly are these people doing? This podcast will give you the answers and inspire you to live the life that you want today. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me. It's another Pete Cohen podcast, and today we are looking at the subject of habit busting. Habit busting revisited. This is such an important subject. Today's episode is brought to you by my 365 Elite Pro. We are launching very soon my brand new coaching experience. If you're the sort of person that really wants to take your life to another place, you want to go somewhere maybe that you've not been before, you want to go further than you've been before, you want to make significant changes with your health, your relationships, your finances, then check out my 365 Elite Pro. I believe it is the number one coaching experience for any human being anywhere in the world. It's your opportunity to work with me for a year and to have access to the greatest content of material that I've ever put together. What have you got to lose? Well, I think it's more about what you have to gain. And I would really encourage you to head over to petecohen.com/coaching. Check out my video. It's called The 3 Secrets to Create the Life That You Want Today and to Become the Leader That You Want to Follow. Go and check that out. You'll understand more about my philosophy. You'll definitely get some information that will help you to make some positive change immediately. But then you will have the opportunity to get on a call with me, a free strategy call, and let's see what you want, where you are right now, and see if my 365 Elite Pro is going to be a program, a process, a protocol, a system that will help you create an unbelievable life. We know that a great life doesn't happen by chance. It happens by design, and the best way to design that is get yourself a coach and get yourself a community where you can start to grow. So check it out, because this is an unbelievable opportunity. Let's get stuck into the podcast. So habit busting. Now, this is a subject that is very familiar to me, and it's something I've revisited recently because I think it's important sometimes to look at important areas of your life and to reassess them. You know, we live in a golden age right now in terms of science, neuroscience, and looking at the human experience and how we can optimize that. The word optimize really means, comes from the Latin word to be your best. And to be your best requires you to constantly look at yourself. And one of the things I want to look at today is I just want to give you a bit of an overview of the whole area of habits, but I really want to look at the forces that act upon us, because we are very much creatures of habit. And I'd love to have been there when Aristotle actually said those words. He wouldn't have said it obviously in English. He would have said that in Greek, I believe. He would have said, I was about to put on a Greek accent, but that wouldn't have made any difference. I mean, imagine if he actually really did say those words, or words to those effect, that excellence is not an act. It's a habit. You know, we are basically what we repeatedly do. And when we look at our life, it's estimated that about 40 to 45% of everything that we do every single day, every decision that we make is just habitual. And we do live in a world that right now, the difference between the world when I wrote the book, Habit Busting, in 1999, came out in 2001, became an international best-selling book, published in 7 languages around the world. And I found a copy of this recently because I've been working with a Korean athlete. And I just thought, you know what, I've got to find that, see if I can still find that copy of the book. I never forget when the book came to me, they sent me copies in the different languages. So in Japanese, in Korean, in Arabic, in Polish, in Spanish, in Portuguese. The books came to me, and the one that came to me in Japanese and in Korean, obviously it was just really amazing because their words, their letters are completely different to ours. I'm not sure why I'm telling you that, but it was just amazing to give a copy of this book to this young Korean athlete. But as I was looking at it, not that I could understand it, I wrote, you know what, I wrote that book in 1999. A lot has changed in a couple of the subjects that I always like to at least once or twice a year is just to revisit. It's definitely habits. It's definitely willpower, which is the science of self-control. Those are incredibly linked, habits and willpower. The other subjects, confidence, I love to look at that. Leadership, personal and professional leadership, mindfulness, wellness, and habits. I've just already said that, the habit of looking at your habits, because we are what we repeatedly do. And if you look at your life under a microscope, you'll realize that, wow, I am very much who I am because of the way I think, the way I feel, and how that affects my actions. And I think one of the things which I've realized, which, if I was writing the book again, which is something that, I might actually do because I'm so passionate about the subject. I'm so passionate about helping people like you get from where you are to where you want to be. So I have to ask you that question. Where do you actually want to be? I say this a lot, and it kind of sometimes, I don't know whether it confuses people, but I'm never where I want to be. There's always somewhere that I'm going. There's always something now in the future that is in front of me. And for years, I don't know if you're like me, but for years, it was never a question of where I was going. It was always a question of where I didn't want to go. So I was always moving away from a place that was not somewhere I wanted to be. And a lot of people are like that. It's like the force that is pushing people forwards in life is poverty, unhappiness, rejection, fear of not being good enough, fear of not being loved, and trying to move away from somewhere. And if you do that, it's like running around in the dark. It's like you never really see where you're going. And I think what most people need is a light. And it's funny, as I'm talking to you right now on my computer screen, which I can see in the distance, I can see an image of me talking to a few hundred people. And I asked everyone to turn the lights on their phone and hold their phone up in the air. And we turn the house lights off, and it's a great photograph. But when you look at it, it's amazing. You see the light on the phone like a star. It's got like 12 points to it. It's unbelievable. It's one of the best pictures that I've ever had. It's actually on my website as well. And what's amazing is lighting up, for me, it just represents people having a light, something that they're moving towards. And once you have that in life, it's important. I suppose you could call that a goal. And having a goal is important. There's no question about it. We are teleological. We need to have things to move towards. Human beings are definitely at their best. But what I want to look at as we revisit the subject, and I think, what would I write differently? I'd definitely write about the forces. What are the forces that we're acting upon that is moving us in a particular direction? And in most cases, that has something to do with the cue and the action and the reward. When you look at someone who does something, there's often a cue. We often don't realize what the cue is because it's so automatic. The cue is we see someone eating a cookie, or we smell a cookie, and then all of a sudden the action is before we know it, we're eating it because we want the reward. We want the reward that it gives us. And this is fascinating for all of us to start looking at our lives like we're investigating what's going on. And that's the next thing I'd love you to do. See yourself as an investigator. You're investigating your life. You're looking at what's going on. You're kind of holding a magnifying glass. It's like lighting a match in a dark place. Imagine going into into a house of someone who hoards things, just collects things and just doesn't throw them away. And it's dark and you can't see anything. You light a match and then all of a sudden you look around you and you say, wow, look at all this stuff that you've collected. And sometimes when we realize what's going on, I think for a lot of people, they don't want to face it. But look, you're not alone. We have to look at our system. It's great to have goals, but we need to look at the system because the system is what's driving the show. And the reason we have habits is so that we can forget a habit. Let me say that again. The reason we have habits is that we can forget about it and things just happening in the background that are just automatic. They're automated. So take a look at your life and think of all the things that are just automatic to you. And some of those things are moving you in a particular direction. Is it moving you in a direction that you want to go, or is it moving you away? And this is something else that I've learned over the last few years about aggregating and compounding, which for me to even talk about that means we're talking about maths. Watch out, Pete Cohen. Maths is really not your subject. But if you look at the law of compounding and aggregating, it's absolutely fascinating that what you can do. So I look at what I'm sharing with you right now as an opportunity. I'm sharing information with you that if you act upon it, it could help you with your system, help your system to work more effectively, help you move towards your goals, or it could make you move the other way. I think with everything that we do, it's either going to move us forwards or move us backwards. And I want us to look at this whole concept of 1%, making 1% improvement, which for some people is just boring. They just want everything now. There's a very famous website. It's called Quora, and Quora is famous for people going to ask questions. And recently we've been playing around with that, and we wanted to experience what happened if we start answering people's questions. So I've been doing this a lot, and you can go and see it for yourself. And then sent all these questions to answer. And you would not, but maybe you would believe, there's so many questions that are just like, let me give you an example here. Can you lose weight just by eating fruit? Can you lose weight? Let me look at this one here. Can you lose weight by eating every day but skipping eating every third day? I mean, I'm not saying that's a stupid question, but some of the questions are really, does it matter? I mean, check this question out. Does it matter to eat healthy food to lose weight, or is it just a matter of total calorie intake? I mean, what sort of a question is that? I mean, 8 people have answered it. I'm one of the people who have answered it because we just wanted to find out what happens if you start giving people answers to things and trying to help people. And I think we are in a world now where we can help each other, and we should be providing value and looking to go above and beyond what people expect, especially if we have something we would like to share with them. It's like, we'll give them something of value. So I'm trying to give answers to people. And not only have I spent the last 30 plus years working in that area, but I've spent even longer working in the area of fitness. I started in 1989. My God, I can't believe that. Is that nearly... That's a very long time ago. In helping people get fit, lose weight. So I'm obsessed with this. And I'm always obsessed with what does it take to work. And I want all of us today to understand, with listening to this podcast, we have an opportunity at the end, right now, as to what we do. And if we constantly work on ourselves and we recognize little things that we could do, because it is little things that over time make a big, 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 big difference. And it's mundane to people, the whole idea. But what I want us to do is imagine just like an aeroplane right now. If an aeroplane took off from LAX, Los Angeles, and was going to, its destination was New York City. If the front of the plane is pointed just 3.5 degrees south, right, and the pilot doesn't correct it, they're going to land in Washington rather than New York City. So inches off at the start equals hundreds of miles at the end. And that's what we need to really do with our behavior, unless we just want to be like everybody else. And if you want to be like everyone else and just go with the flow, that's fine. But if we look at what are the decisions I'm making today and what direction are they moving me in? Does this make sense? And if we apply the law of aggregation, if you focused on doing some very simple things every single day, and you did that for 365 days, you would be 37 times better than you are today if you apply the laws of aggregation. But this is where it starts to get really interesting, that if you did that for 2 years, you wouldn't be 74 times better, you would be 1,400 times better, right? After the third year of aggregating and compounding those 1% gains, you would be 53,405 times better. And this is when you start to look at great performances and you really look at how someone has achieved something. It's not that they did something just for an act. They did it every single day. After 4 years, you'd be 2 million times better. And after 5 years, you'd be 76 million times better. And after 10 years, well, you're talking trillions. And this is when you look at people who really do excel at things. People who become great at things. What do you think? And when we start to look at the forces, for me, the forces relate to a few things. What are the forces that are acting on you today? And in many cases, the forces that are acting on us is our past. And many of us are just victims to the past and victim to our conditioning, because when you start to look at your life, maybe you'll realize that you have certain habits. And the reason you have them was whenever you started them at that time, it was the best thing for you to do. So smoking is a great example. I don't know about you, but the only reason I smoked was other people did it and I wanted to fit in with them. It's the same with drinking for many people, to fit in, to do what others do. And I remember I did not enjoy my first cigarette. I didn't enjoy probably my 50th cigarette, but I stuck at it because I wanted the reward. The forces that are acting upon me was I wanted to fit in. And if you could start looking at this with a big smile on your face and go, you know what, I want to get better. I want to get better in a few areas of my life. What areas might they be? Well, for most people, you're talking about their family, their energy, their health, their work, their service, their finances. Excellence is not an act. Excellence is a habit. And a great example of this was someone who I got to meet a few years ago, and it's Dave Brailsford, who was the performance director for British Cycling. Now, British Cycling for 100 years was just full of mediocrity. And I think that's just how a lot of people live their life. It's just mediocre. And even that word is fascinating. It's just basically comes from two Latin words, medi and ocrity, meaning basically caught in the middle of a rugged mountain. And I think that's what most of us are. So many failed attempts of trying to change our life and just feeling caught, not happy, just stuck. And just settling for that life, just drifting through. And if that's what you want in life, well, fantastic. But the reward, ultimately, the legacy of your life, what do you want that to be? I would imagine the greatest thing you'll ever achieve is who you became. It's not just the result, what you did every single day. Right now, it's 5:25 in the morning. I got up at 4 and I get into the groove of starting my daily habits, and I don't leave those to chance. They're automated. Before I know it, I've come downstairs and I've drunk a glass of water. I've started making some notes. I focus on what's important. I drink a cup of coffee, and then I do what I need to do. And after I finish this, I will do 2 things which are non-negotiables, right? I will meditate and I will exercise. But wouldn't it be great to get to some of these things for you where they're automated? You just find yourself doing them. All the studies have shown that when you get someone to a point where something is automated, but even when things are automated, sometimes you have to just check in with yourself, booking in a session with yourself. That's why coaching and being around other people who have similar habits to you is so profound. But Dave Brailsford, he became the performance director, British Cycling, really average for a very long time. And he set a goal. He said, we're gonna be the greatest cycling team, and he was always looking at what we call marginal gains, so 1% improvement. And he did some pretty crazy things. In the Tour de France with the Sky team, they would take the mattress that the cyclists have to all the different hotels they were staying in. So that might seem crazy, but for people to have a good night's sleep, knowing that they slept on the same mattress would have a massive difference. They used to rub alcohol, not on the cyclists, on their tires. They changed their seats. They were really looking at all these little things that every human being could do that weren't necessarily sexy or big or grandiose, but done over time, they made a big difference. And literally just after 5 years, they started to dominate, right? In 2008 in Beijing, the British cycling team won 60% of the gold medals. 4 years later in London, they won 9 Olympic gold medals, 7 world records. And the following year, Sir Bradley Wiggins became the first British cyclist to win the Tour de France, right? And then after that, Chris Froome won it 4 times over a 5-year period. And then not this year, the year before, Geraint Thomas won it. So during 11 years, they won 178 world championships, 66 Olympic gold medals, and 6 Tour de France victories. So how did they do this? Well, by applying the law of compounding and marginal gains. Think about it. So 5 years, if we take the law of aggregation, you will be 76 million times better than you are today. And this is where I think we just need to wake up. If you look at the research that some great people are doing, people like James Clear, Charles Duhigg, Stephen Guise, people who have written books on atomic habits. Charles Duhigg has written The Power of Habit. I've read all these books. They're much better than the book I wrote because people are constantly learning and growing. I'm so much better now at helping people and the results that we get with people. But the thing that is so important to recognize is that I don't know whether you've ever played a game like Snakes and Ladders. I think that's a great example. By the way, Snakes and Ladders was invented in India as a game to teach children about the difference between doing the right thing and the wrong thing in life. If you did the good things and you helped people and you were a good person, you go up ladders. If you weren't, you'd go down in life, but you were always still in the game. And this is really important. You set goals to win the game, right? But you build a system to play the game every day. And that's what we have to think about, the system. There's something in people where I think we don't like systems. We like to kind of be a rebel. But if you look at why something is successful, because there is a system to it. And it's not like you have to be completely rigid with everything, but with most things that are important, you most definitely do. So for example, if someone's diabetic, if they're not rigid when they take their insulin, then they're going to have a problem. Even though most diabetes type 2 would be rectified completely if people made habitual changes, but they have to be daily habitual changes. And what I'm trying to say about this is that how we commit habit suicide is when we stop doing something that's important. If we do it for a day, that's fine. If it becomes 2 days, then it's a big problem for most people. It really, really is. It's what we call habit suicide. That it's almost like you're going all the way back down to the bottom of Snakes and Ladders. And I don't know whether you've ever played Snakes and Ladders and you kept going down and you kept going down and to the point where you just say, I don't want to play this game anymore. That's what happens to people. And often we don't realize just really what's going on but underneath. But we don't often see the effectiveness of what's going on. It's like on that Quora, the amount of people that ask about someone wrote, how do I melt my belly fat? And I wrote back and saying, well, melting body fat, I don't know how you would do that, get some sort of an industrial blowtorch and light it up and you could probably melt it that way. But the body fat around your stomach doesn't belong to your stomach. It belongs to your whole body. And when your body starts to lose weight, your body will take the fat from wherever it wants. In most cases, it will probably take it from where it's doing you most harm, which is around your organs, but you won't really see that's happening. And that's the stuff with us. When we start changing, we don't often see great results. People asking questions, how do I lose 60 kilograms in 6 weeks? It's like, what? There are certain things that we can do and there are certain things that we can't do. Excellent is not an act, it's a habit. And by the way, the word habit actually comes from something that people wear, and then later on in history it became something specifically that nuns wore. But basically, a habit is something that is repeated that eventually requires no effort or no thought. But to get to that point is a big challenge, and that's why one of the most famous stories in the history of man is Adam and Eve. And you think, what's that story about? Well, they were told not to do something. They couldn't stop thinking about it. And eventually they gave in to temptation. And if you think about how much temptation there is to move you away from where you want to go, that you get distracted. I mean, it's just so much distraction going on right now. And we have to really work out what is important in our life. What is important and what are the habits that we need to move us in the direction that we actually want to go. So we have to look at this, or we don't have to look at this. By the way, if you want to look at it from another point of view, just because sometimes if you give people another perspective about all of this, it helps them even more, which is, imagine if I said to you, right, look, I'll give you £5 million right now, or I'll give you a penny every day and I'll double it every day. What would you want? Well, if you ask people and you say, you've got to make up your mind up now, and they didn't think about it, most people would go, well, give me the 5 million. Well, actually, you'd probably want it to be double it, please, every single day, because it doesn't look very much after one day, right? 1p. Okay, great. What would the next day be? 2p. What would the day 3 be? Day 4 would be 4p. What would day 15 be? £163.84. Or think of it in dollars, however you want. That's not that much. Day 27, 671,000. Make sure it's a day with 31. You must, if this happens to you, by the way, and a stranger comes up to you and says this to you, just say, yeah, I'll do it, but it has to be 31 days. Because on the 31st day, you'd have nearly £11 million. Now, to be tempted by this, it's like me saying, look, come and knock on my door every single day, and after a year, I'll give you £1 million. But you have to knock on the door at exactly the same time every single day. How many of you would you do it? Because you'd have a big enough reward, a big enough thing that you were moving towards. And I think as we continue to put these podcasts out and really help people with this whole concept of coaching, you know, taking someone from where they are to where they want to be, which is what we're all about. That's what we're going to do. We will continue to do this. And if you get inspired by these podcasts, that's fantastic. Feel free to like it, share it, comment on it. Join our Facebook group. It's a free Facebook group. It's private. It's just where people can share some of the things they're working on. There's more and more people joining that. Just search for on Pete Cohen podcast. And just understand that a great life, it doesn't happen by chance. It happens by design. And if you want to achieve something great, then it's going to need a system that works with the habits that work. So what's one thing that you could do on the back of this podcast? One thing right now that you could do that would move your life in a 1% better place. Because, you know, once this finishes recording, like I say, I could feel the resistance of, well, you know, don't meditate, don't exercise, you haven't got time. Well, I haven't got time not to, because it's just too important. And the forces will act against me. But if I don't give myself too much time to think about it and just take action, then the results are there for me. We don't want to wait to feel something. I don't feel like it. We have to recognize what's important and then build the system inside ourselves where these things start to happen automatically. I really appreciate you guys being here. It's such an important subject. I'm sure we'll do more podcasts on it. What's your number one takeaway? What's one thing you're going to do straight away? Even go right now, petecohen.com/coaching. Go and listen to some more of Pete Cohen talking about how to create the life that you want today, and get on a call with us and let us share with you My 365 Elite Pro. This is a program that lasts for 365 days where we really help you identify with where it is that you want to go and the habits that are an absolute prerequisite to build this over time, and then help you with being involved in an environment, a culture where other people are doing this. It's an unbelievable opportunity. And like I said, this podcast today is brought to you by My 365 Elite Pro. Pro means becoming a professional in building the you that you were put on this earth to be. Thank you so much. We will see you for another Pete Cohen podcast. Happy, beautiful day. Goodbye. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you want to find out what life coaching can do for you with me, Pete Cohen, then simply visit petecohen.com/coaching and book a free strategy call, and we can help you find out exactly what it is that you want and help you put a plan in place to create the future that you want today.